The EU and its allies must come up with practical solutions to provide Ukraine with security guarantees, according to European Council President Antonio Costa. Costa spoke at a virtual briefing with the coalition of the willing leaders, including Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen, following a Washington summit.
Now is the time to accelerate our practical work to put in place a guarantee similar to NATO's Article 5, with continued United States engagement. The coalition of willing should remain closely involved in this process. The Ukrainian armed forces will be the first line of defense. That is why we must enhance, reinforce, and unblock our military support to Ukraine.
European leaders have been cautiously optimistic about US-led efforts to bring forward a peace deal, but have reiterated concerns over Europe's ability to trust Russian President Vladimir Putin. Both Denmark and Finland's leaders said Tuesday that the Russian leader must show he's serious about a peace agreement. A breakthrough for Ukraine's European allies is Trump's commitment to participate in providing security guarantees for Ukraine. Trump on Tuesday, however, ruled out US boots on the ground in Ukraine and gave no specifics about US support in a post-war settlement. The UK has said a reassurance force headed by the UK and France would involve allies sending troops to non-contact areas. Ukraine's membership to the EU is also on the table as a safety card, although it is currently stalled by Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban. Despite an uptick in diplomacy around ending the war, Russia struck Ukraine overnight with a wave of missile and drone attacks from Monday into Tuesday.
NATO Secretary General, you're doing a fantastic job. Thank you very much, Mark.
Seated around the same table at the White House, 5 European leaders, the President of the European Commission and the Secretary General of NATO all rallied around the Ukrainian president to support his demands in the face of Donald Trump. EU is back at the negotiating table on a possible peace agreement between Ukraine and Russia, according to this expert.
I dare say that the EU is back, but now we must stay firm and show determination. And that also means the willingness to accept risk, especially by giving a security guarantee to Ukraine with boots on the ground.
The European priority was to push for security guarantees for Kyiv to be an integral part of any possible future peace agreement, to protect Ukraine from another Russian attack in the future. In a U-turn, the U.S. president hinted for the first time that the U.S. might provide Ukraine with security guarantees.
Trump said this time that Europeans have to deliver a security guarantee coordinated by the United States. That's already a change of view, because initially he says this was our job and the US or NATO would not be involved. So there is evolution there in the good sense, but still it's very short on detail.
What remains to be agreed is what security guarantees the US and EU would be prepared to provide to Ukraine. Best would be the one closest to Article 5 of the NATO treaty.
A security guarantee means that I promise to go to war if your security is threatened. Everything less than that is support, but it's not a security guarantee. The best way to make that credible is by pre-deploying troops in Ukraine after a ceasefire or a peace agreement.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zilinski said Western allies would formalize security guarantees for Ukraine within 10 days.
When Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky met with US President Donald Trump in the Oval Office in February, his wartime attire became a flashpoint in a disastrous session. But for Monday's meeting between the two leaders, Zelensky was dressed to impress. During the meeting, a reporter who in February had taken Zelensky to task for not wearing a suit instead gave him a compliment.
I didn't do any ceasefires.
First of all, Mr. President Zilinski, you look fabulous in that suit.
I said the same thing.
Yeah, you look good.
I said the same thing.
Yeah, looks good on
I
you.
said the one that attacked you last time. See, that was it. I remember that.
Yeah, I apologize to you. You look wonderful. No, my first question for you, President Zilinski.
In the same suit. You see, I changed, you are not.
Since 2022, Zelensky has mainly worn the same military-style outfit as an act of solidarity with Ukrainian troops fighting Russia's invasion.
Israel says it is studying Hamas's response to a ceasefire proposal in Gaza, but has so far not yet weighed in with a response of its own. The deal, which is partly mediated by Qatar, would include a 60-day truce, the release of some of the hostages held by Hamas in return for hundreds of Palestinian prisoners, a flood of humanitarian aid into Gaza, and talks on a lasting ceasefire.
We are yet to receive a response from the Israeli side, so we cannot make any claims that a breakthrough has been made. But we do believe it is a positive point when we have a positive response from Hamas over the agreement that was there on the table since a couple of months ago.
Meanwhile, hospitals in Gaza continue to be overwhelmed with bodies and injured people due to continued Israeli strikes. And UN agencies warn that the trickle of aid entering Gaza is insufficient to avert widespread starvation.
The risk of starvation is everywhere in Gaza. This is a direct result of the Israeli government's policy of blocking humanitarian aid.
Pressure on Israel is mounting to respond to the ceasefire proposal as the prospect of an expanded assault on areas sheltering hundreds of thousands of civilians has sparked condemnation inside Israel and abroad. Israel has vowed to continue the war until all the hostages held in Gaza are returned and Hamas is disarmed.
Finnish politician Emily Pelton was found dead in the country's parliament building in Helsinki on Tuesday in what authorities believe was a suicide. The death of Pelton, who was an MP of the Social Democratic Party, sent shockwaves through Finland's political sphere. The country's parliament is currently in summer recess, but Prime Minister Petteri Orpo suspended all political work on Tuesday as a mark of respect. He also held a minute of silence for Pelton. The 30-year-old had been out of the political spotlight in recent weeks, and in June he announced that a kidney problem and subsequent infection had kept him away from work.
Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez will declare the areas affected by the deadly wildfires as disaster zones. The fires, currently ranging for a 10th consecutive day, have burned through an area of more than 3,800 square kilometers, according to the EU's European Forest Fire Information System. Thousands of Spanish firefighters, aided by soldiers and water-bombing aircraft, were still at work battling the flames, particularly severe in the northwestern Galicia province. The Interior Ministry says firefighting units from Germany arrived in Spain on Tuesday as part of a European coordination agreement and will be helping to fight the blazes. Madrid says at least 4 people were killed in this year's wildfire season. Police have detained more than 20 people for suspected arson and are investigating almost 90 others for allegedly sparking or contributing to the disaster. The country is still battling a dozen active fires, which continue to rage despite the end of Europe's record-setting heat wave, bringing in cooler temperatures. In neighboring Portugal, more than 3,700 firefighters were at work on Tuesday to brave the flames. At least 2 people were killed by the fires, which have also torched over 2,300 square kilometers. The figure is a 5-fold increase over an almost 2-decade average, ranging from 2006 to 2024. Norwegian prosecutors have indicted the eldest son of Crown Princess Mette-Marit on multiple charges following a lengthy investigation. 28-year-old Marius Borg Høiby was charged with close to 36 counts, including multiple counts of rape and abuse. He was also charged with other offenses including violence against a former partner, making death threats, and traffic violations. Høiby faces up to 10 years behind bars if convicted on all counts. His defense attorney in a statement said that his client denies all charges of sexual abuse and the majority of violence charges and plans to fight it in court. Prosecutors say they expect the trial to begin in mid-January next year and estimate it to last around 6 weeks. Italy's Ventina glacier has now melted so much due to climate change to the point where geologists can only continue measuring it remotely. The Lombardy Glaciological Service says it will now use drone imagery to measure the annual retreat of the glacier and keep track of its ongoing shrinkage. Geologists, who've been measuring the glacier on-site for the past 130 years, say it's far too dangerous for future in-person visits. The simple stakes planted on the glacier as a benchmark to measure its retreat are now buried under piles of rock slides and debris, rendering the terrain unsteady. The glacier has been in steady retreat since geologists first began measuring it in 1895. Experts say melting has accelerated on the Italian iceberg in recent years, having lost about 430 meters in the last decade alone, with nearly half of that since 2021. Italy's glaciers, primarily found in the country's north along the Alps and Dolomites, have been steadily receding due to inadequate snowfall in the winter and record-setting hot summers. The Lombardy Service says the Alps represent a climate hotspot, recording double the global average of temperature increases since pre-industrial times, resulting in a loss of 64% of alpine glacier volume.
After 8 years of planning, a church in Sweden began a slow-motion 5-kilometer journey to make way for the expansion of Europe's largest underground mine. The Kiruna Church, a Lutheran church, will roll to its new home over 2 days at the pace of just half a kilometer per hour. It's being moved as a nearby mine is expanding deeper underground, causing residents to see cracks in the buildings and roads. Officials have moved numerous buildings to a new downtown at a safe distance from the mine. Thousands of visitors descended on Kiruna to watch the spectacle, which included an early morning blessing and a performance from Sweden's 2025 Eurovision entry.